Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and the meta in Path of Exile 2 has changed completely with Dawn of the Hunt. That is assuming you can actually get the game to run. Meanwhile, Diablo 4 players are dying in town. The Nintendo Switch 2 has people both excited and upset. From Software announced a new game that is not what people expected or hoped for. And rumors are that multiple big companies are actually trying to get Blizzard to give them a license to make a new StarCraft game. We're going to go over all that and more in this weekly news roundup video, but do be sure to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new episodes when they come out. But before we go on, a word from this video's sponsor, NordVPN. A VPN is an important tool for keeping your data secure and encrypted on the internet. And I don't dare connect to public Wi-Fi without first enabling my VPN. Whether I'm on a phone or a laptop, at an airport or a cafe, I turn on my protection before connecting to that public Wi-Fi. Because you never know who may be snooping around trying to steal your personal data. Because that Wi-Fi network named Cafe Free Wi-Fi can actually be anyone using their phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot to trick you into connecting to them. Turn on your VPN, and now your data is getting encrypted before going out. You can also use a VPN to get around region-blocked content by picking a server in a different country, and NordVPN has thousands of servers worldwide. And it's so user-friendly that you're basically just one click away from hiding your IP or browsing the web from a different country. And one account lets you connect up to 10 devices, be they computers, phones, tablets, you name it. So, take control of your internet experience today with NordVPN. Right now, when you use my link, nordvpn.com/Rhykker, you'll get a huge discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 additional bonus months. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/RHYKKER, or click the link in the description below. Alright, beginning with Path of Exile news, we'll very quickly touch upon PoE 1. With the Phrecia event set to end in a couple weeks, I'm seeing more and more players call for an extension. The Ascendancy shakeup has changed the meta so much that there's still a lot for players to explore, even veteran players. And one cool idea I actually saw was to just start stacking more past leagues on top of the existing Phrecia event. Just shake things up as the weeks are going by. Add Crucible, add Scourge. Phrecia just becomes increasingly insane as things go on with crazier and crazier builds possible, all without much effort needed from GGG to develop anything new, just drawing upon old stuff. But on to Path of Exile 2. We got yesterday the launch of Dawn of the Hunt. New league, new class, entirely new meta. Let's start with the good stuff. The new map system now allows you to enter and exit maps as many times as you want. Portals now represent your revives, not your visits to town. And if you die, you're going to respawn at the last checkpoint. No more awkward loading screens or forced hideout detours. Just get back in there. Great change. This update also dropped 100 new support gems, bringing the total number to nearly 300 support gems. So with this update, we're getting 50% more support gems. Now, when the patch notes themselves dropped, a lot of people were shocked at the extent of the nerfs. We all expected nerfs, of course. But all the top builds were basically gutted, and there weren't really that many buffs to the lower performing builds, just nerfs that completely killed the pre-patch meta. And for the most part, I think the nerfs were a good move, although I do question some of the nerfs, like making Hex Blast basically unplayable, or killing Flame Blast, or burying Explosive Grenade. But Spark, Stormweaver, Archmage, those are obviously going to be hit. Raging Spirits is another weird one. You now summon 2 spirits instead of 5, which just makes the skill much more annoying to play. Grim Feast was literally removed from the game while they're reworking it. That's fine, it was way too strong. But then the Hellhound lost its ability to tank damage for you, making its only purpose now to, ignite enemies? Meaning it's basically useless now. The drop chance for Breach Rings has been greatly reduced, ouch. Magic Find was nerfed. That's great, because stacking Magic Find on gear is something a lot of people don't like, and, you know, a lot of us would be completely fine with having it removed from the game entirely. You know, maybe keep Magic Find in the, on maps or in the Atlas tree, but, get it off itemization. Oh, and they buffed crossbows. Ultimately, the meta is completely different now, and that's great. Did you really want to play the same meta where everyone is running the same 3 builds, basically? For the next 3 months. I know a lot of people don't like nerfs. Now, I've consistently, over the years, across multiple games, been in favor of buffing and nerfing. both. But I'm especially in favor of nerfing during an early access game. If they're not allowed, if the devs are not allowed to balance the game before it even launches, when are they going to be able to balance the game? But I get it, and a lot of people don't like that. And in that case, if you don't want to experience the ups and downs of early access, you can just wait for the full release and play the polished and balanced game. Now, we've heard from the devs that they want to slow down the pace of the game. That was a big thing with PoE 2, and then in the end game, things got fast again. They want to slow things down again, and they've also mentioned that they want to put a focus on combo-based gameplay, where you have a skill rotation that actually matters, that you're not just spamming one attack over and over, that, you know, maybe you require some setup and payoff as part of this combo, and that's all well and good in theory. You know, a lot of people are seeking a more methodical gameplay experience. Unfortunately, it feels that while we're playing PoE 2, the monsters are still playing PoE 1. It's very difficult to engage with deep combo-based gameplay when a million monsters are running at you like they're hyped up on espresso and bodying you before you can get a combo off. Plus, they nerfed our resistance to ailments, so we're getting frozen, stunned, shocked more easily. And the reason for doing this seems to be in an effort to make charms feel more useful. But damn, I'd rather see charms just reworked entirely than get crowd controlled more. Now, launch day for the patch was pretty rough. Players were experiencing performance issues with the new patch that they weren't experiencing earlier in the week. If you're still experiencing these issues, I don't know if they're going to be fixed by the time this video goes live, but disabling NVIDIA Reflex or even swapping to the Vulkan renderer helped a lot of people have more stable frame rates. But there's also a ton of crashes. I'm sure anyone who played on Friday ran into the unknown object type serialized by server error that crashed your game at least once, if not multiple times. And this crash seemed to happen mostly or always in town. My theory here is that there's some cosmetic or some assets, whether it's a shop cosmetic or whether it's just an actual like skin on a regular item, something that is loading that causes this crash. So in town, that's when you're exposed to other random players. They don't have to be in your party, just any random player can pop into the instance. So I think once someone pops in with this infringing cosmetic, it causes your game to crash, or anyone in that instance causes their game to crash. And then if you try to load back into the game right away, well, you're still in the same instance, that dude's still in the same instance, you crash again. And you either have to wait or, you know, for him to leave or for you to end up in a different instance where you're not going to crash. Just a theory. I've even seen some people report that they think their character is bricked entirely. Either they equipped an item or a cosmetic or something, and then they could just never load back into the game at all. I do expect this is something that GGG will fix relatively soon, as it is a pretty serious error. Now, crashes aside, for my own experience with Dawn of the Hunt, I'm really liking the Huntress. I love that I get to play as a Lightning Javazon as of low level. I was concerned about the parry gameplay. I'm actually taking to it quite well as someone who completely fails at parrying in literally every other game I play. I'm even learning to pull off some combos, and they feel satisfying when I do pull them off. But what do you folks think? Are you loving the new PoE 2 changes, or did GGG go too far with the nerf hammer? Sound off in the comments. Oh, and a reminder, update your loot filters, folks, either filterblade.xyz or poe2filter.com. Also, if you want some help going through the campaign, poe2acts.com has a nice little checklist to go through. Moving on to some Nintendo news now. The Nintendo Switch 2 has been officially revealed. It's launching June 5th, and the announcements that came with it were kind of a roller coaster. The Duskbloods, a brand new game from Software, exclusive to Switch 2, was announced. It is not Bloodborne 2, because Sony owns that IP, but it's giving heavy Bloodborne energy in the same way that Dark Souls followed Demon Souls. Got this dark gothic aesthetic, but here's the thing that surprised everyone and made a lot of people lose interest. It's a PvPvE game for up to 8 players. Now, From Software director Hidetaka Miyazaki explained that while this game is designed at its core to be online multiplayer, that does not mean that the studio's focus is shifting towards this direction. They're still going to make the kind of games that they're known for making. In the Duskbloods, you play as a Bloodsworn, who's kind of like a superhero with vampire powers. Every character is able to attack in both melee and range. You also have a summon ability. There are a dozen characters to pick from, and these characters can be customized. The gameplay loop consists of picking your character in a game lobby, you equip your character, then you enter a match with up to 7 other players. Matches play out in, again, PvPvE. You fight monsters, you fight other players, and generally the last man standing is the winner, though sometimes there are other victory conditions, like sometimes you get to team up, kind of co-op against a boss. Also, there's random events that can spawn that further shakes up matches, and players can also receive personal goals to accomplish during a match. Once the match is over, you receive some kind of reward, win or lose, based on how many victory points you've gained for accomplishing different things during the match, and you can use these rewards to further customize your character, their appearance, as well as their abilities. But that game aside, moving on to the hardware of the Switch 2 itself. It features a larger 7.9-inch LCD screen, not OLED, sadly, with handheld support for up to 1080p at 120 FPS, and docked resolution up to 4K. It's just as thick as the original, but with, better internal components. It's got a new dock fan and another USB-C port, this time on the top, which is there so you can attach a new camera peripheral that you can use. There'll be support for games for the camera peripheral, as well as their new chat functionality, which we'll get to very soon. But the Switch itself now has 256 gigs of internal storage and microSD Express support if, that's not enough. The Joy-Con 2s, they're going to attach magnetically. That's pretty neat. They also support a new mouse mode that you take the Joy-Con, you lay it down sideways, and you basically can use it as a mouse pointer. That is amazing. They're adding a new C button to launch Game Chat. This is Nintendo's take on built-in voice chat. Allows you to talk to up to 12 people. But before you get too excited about that, Game Chat will only be free until April 2026, after which it joins Nintendo Switch Online behind a paywall. And speaking of the paywall, that takes us to the price point. The Switch itself, the Switch 2, will cost $450. As a point of comparison, the first Nintendo Switch that launched in 2017 cost $300. And as for the games, well, those are also going up in price. Mario Kart World, one of the flagship launch titles, is going to run you $80 for the digital version and $90 for the physical version. And that price hike is not a one-off. New entries like Donkey Kong Bonanza and Switch 2 editions of older games like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, these are all pushing into the $70 and $80 range. Yeah, these prices as well just for the Switch 2 versions of existing games. But to talk a bit more about Mario Kart World, it is a massive evolution from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, featuring off-road maps, a beefy roster with some pretty unexpected characters actually. It's also got some Forza Horizon style design inspiration. Meanwhile, Donkey Kong Bonanza is a full 3D platformer, and it's the first new Donkey Kong game in over a decade. Donkey Kong Bonanza drops July 17th, and it looks like it was made by the Mario Odyssey team, complete with Geomod-style terrain deformation. And given they didn't announce a kind of standalone Mario title, it really feels like Nintendo's trying to bring Donkey Kong back to his 90s glory and really put the spotlight on him. Oh, Kirby's also making a return, with Kirby Air Riders announced for 2025, because if you're going to release 2 first-party racing games in the same year, might as well make sure neither of them is F-Zero, right? Now, according to Eurogamer, battery life is said to be worse than the original Nintendo Switch. It kind of does make sense, because we're running better internal components, higher refresh rate, more powerful CPU, GPU, and there's basically been no improvement in battery technology in the past decade. But I know that battery life is a pretty important thing for a lot of people for these handhelds, so... Now, something, I guess, consumer-friendly that they're doing seems to be a means of thwarting scalpers. You basically, in order to pre-order one of these, need to prove your loyalty to Nintendo. In some regions, you'll need to have had a continuous Nintendo Switch Online membership for up to 2 years and have at least 50 hours of playtime logged to even be invited to pre-order. Over time, they'll lower the selection criteria. Now, altogether, the Switch 2 is shaping up to be one of Nintendo's most ambitious consoles yet, but also it's most controversial, particularly with the price points here. It feels like just yesterday we were complaining about games rising to $70, and now Nintendo is already pushing $90 games here for a physical copy of Mario Kart. Now, sure, the last Mario Kart sold 67 million copies. It kind of just feels like Nintendo's trying to push as far as they can to see what they can get away with. But how are you folks feeling about the Switch 2? Are you hyped for the Duskbloods, or does the multiplayer focus put you off? Does Mario Kart World justify a $90 price? Or has Nintendo's greed at this point cooled your excitement on the Switch 2? Sound off in the comments. On to some Diablo news. Diablo 3 will be available on Game Pass as of April 8th, joining Diablo 4, which has been there for a year now. All it's missing is Diablo 2 Resurrected. I expect within the next year we'll probably see that as well. Oh, Heroes of the Storm is also available on Games Pass as of this week. It happened, I think it was announced on April 1st, because I thought it was an April Fool's joke, since the game is free. Why does it have to come to Game Pass? But I guess they're doing it to promote the game in front of a new audience, which raises the question, are we going to see a revival of Heroes of the Storm? Now, speaking of April Fools, Wowhead actually brought us a parody Diablo 4 expansion titled Receptacle of Dislike, featuring the all-new Paladont class and the very cursed Hectides. Now, we've also been getting in Diablo 4 multiple reports of a weird bug that is basically a hardcore player's nightmare. People have been dying in town at the Tree of Whispers. Some people, while AFK, they, go prepare some food, come back, and they're dead near their stash or at the blacksmith or something. But I've actually seen footage, not just anecdotes. I've seen someone capture footage of themselves dying by their stash at the Tree of Whispers. And for the life of me, I cannot explain it. Nothing is happening on screen that would suggest or indicate anything that could possibly kill the character. I am befuddled. You know what? That would actually make for an exciting event. Don't do it to hardcore players, of course, but imagine some weird ghost monster comes into town and starts killing us in town. Heck, that'd be something. All right, moving on to some StarCraft news. We actually spoke about StarCraft, I think it was last week. The StarCraft board game was announced, or sorry, not a board game, a tabletop miniatures game. But now StarCraft video game news, kind of. According to a report that surfaced via the always reliable Grapevine, this came via @Korea Xbox News on Twitter. According to this, 4 major Korean developers are apparently battling it out to win Blizzard's heart and get the rights to make the next StarCraft game. Our contenders: NCSoft, Nexon, Netmarble, and Krafton. Each studio allegedly has pitched a different take on the StarCraft universe to Blizzard. NCSoft, who's best known for Lineage and Guild Wars, they supposedly pitched an RPG, possibly when one could infer an MMORPG given their pedigree. Nexon, the creators of the first Descendant, they brought was described as a unique idea to the table, which is vague but intriguing. Netmarble wants to take StarCraft mobile. I'm sure you're all thrilled to hear that. And Krafton, the studio behind PUBG and Inzoi, seems to be going real vague with a game that is, quote, based on its own development capabilities. That is not exactly inspiring with confidence, but it probably isn't meant to be as bad as it sounds. Now, apparently some of these studios even flew out to Blizzard HQ in Irvine, California to make their case in person to Blizzard, which is either very serious or just a really expensive way to go visit the Jim Raynor and Kerrigan statues on campus. They are glorious, by the way. Now, of course, take all this with a grain of salt. Even if it is true, they're just pitches. It's totally possible none of this pans out. People pitch ideas all the time. But between this and reports last year that Blizzard was taking yet another swing at a StarCraft shooter, this time led by former Far Cry producer, it does seem like something StarCraft this way comes. But what would you folks want from a new StarCraft game? Do you want to see a StarCraft 3, an RTS? Or do you want to see an MMO? Or are we finally ready to see the revival of StarCraft Ghost? Sound off in the comments, folks. Now, on to some bittersweet news for the world of classic PC gaming. Half the team at Cyan Worlds, the legendary studio behind Myst and Riven, has been laid off. That's 12 employees that have been let go as the company is trying to navigate what they describe as the, quote, month-to-month realities of game development. The team apparently saw it coming. It wasn't a surprise, but it doesn't make it any less heartbreaking. In a public statement, Scion said they've been fully transparent with their staff over the past year about the rough waters ahead. Right now, their main focus is securing funding for their next project and trying to restabilize the studio. Scion's been around since 1987. It's as old as me. And that makes them the oldest surviving indie game studio in the US. Back in the 90s, Myst wasn't just popular, it was the best-selling PC game in the world for a while. It was a true icon of the CD-ROM era. So yeah, it stings seeing them in this spot. Here's to hoping they can bounce back. Now in some Atomfall news, Rebellion, the studio behind the Sniper Elite games, just had the biggest launch in their 32-year history. Their latest game, Atomfall, has already pulled in 1.5 million players. Atomfall is a survival action game inspired by the real-world wind-scale nuclear incident from the 1950s, but with a good dash of creative liberty, let's say. Players are dropped into a quarantine zone full of quirky characters and mysteries to unravel as they try to escape. It launched across basically all platforms, PC, both generations of PlayStation, Xbox, and most notably it hit Game Pass on day one. That definitely helped push those numbers skyward. Definitely happy for Rebellion here though. I remember them as the studio that made the Aliens vs. Predator game back in 1999, as well as Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. Have any of you folks played Atomfall? If so, sound off with your thoughts on it. Because that's going to wrap up this week's video, but do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discuss whether Diablo 4 should focus less on seasonal exclusive content. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykker Raiders for more gaming content.